Did you know one of the biggest pop icons of the 80s reportedly had over 50 cosmetic procedures before turning 40? Let's revisit some of the most notorious celebrity plastic surgery disasters of the 1980s. Michael Jackson. We can't talk about plastic surgery in the 1980s without beginning with Michael Jackson. The king of pop didn't just define music in the 80s, he defined what it meant to transform before the public's eyes. His early look, a young man with soft features, a broad nose, and deep brown skin. But as the decade progressed, his face seemed to shift like clay. First a nose job, then another and another. His skin lightened dramatically due to vitiligo, but also, allegedly, with the help of skin treatments. His jawline sharpened, cheekbones appeared more chiseled, and his overall look began to take on an almost otherworldly quality. By the end of the decade, the Michael many of us had grown up with was nearly unrecognizable. Behind the headlines and whispers was a man possibly struggling with deep insecurities and unimaginable pressure. His transformation became a symbol of fame, obsession, and how the pursuit of perfection can sometimes cost a piece of ourselves. Jocelyn Wildenstein. Though she became more infamous in the 1990s, Jocelyn Wildenstein's transformation began in the 1980s, and it quickly became a tabloid obsession. Married to billionaire art dealer Alec Wildenstein, Jocelyn's beauty and wealth once made her a New York socialite icon. But as time passed, she reportedly underwent dozens of procedures, facelifts, cheek implants, brow lifts, lip surgeries, all in an attempt to please her husband and appear more feline because of his love for big cats. What started as subtle adjustments slowly morphed into one of the most dramatic and, to some, disturbing faces in pop culture history. Her eyes were pulled tightly, cheeks protruded unnaturally, and her lips were perpetually swollen. Kenny Rogers? Ah, Kenny Rogers. That rich, soothing voice gave us The Gambler, Islands in the Stream, and so many more timeless hits. But as Kenny's music soared through the 70s and 80s, so did his desire to maintain a youthful face. Toward the late 80s and early 90s, Rogers underwent a series of cosmetic surgeries, primarily eyelid lifts and facelifts. While he never denied trying to slow down time, fans were heartbroken by how his expressions changed. Gone was the soft, expressive twinkle in his eyes. In its place was a tighter, more distant look that just didn't feel like Kenny anymore. He later admitted publicly that he regretted some of the decisions, especially the surgery around his eyes. Donatella Versace. While Donatella's rise to mainstream fame peaked in the 1990s, her plastic surgery journey started in the late 80s. As the vice president of the iconic Versace brand, Donatella was already in the spotlight, but she wanted to stand out more, look younger, and create a signature look. What happened next was one of the most talked about transformations in fashion history. Multiple lip augmentations, nose jobs, brow lifts, and skin procedures left Donatella looking increasingly different from the woman who once stood beside her brother Gianni on the runways of Milan. Her lips became exaggerated, her skin looked tight and shiny, and her overall look drew more attention than the clothes she was designing. Farah Fawcett. Farah Fawcett was the golden girl of the late 70s and early 80s, the poster that lived on every teenage boy's bedroom wall. That dazzling smile, the feathered blonde hair, and her effortless charm made her the epitome of California beauty. But even angels, it seems, felt the weight of time. By the mid to late 80s, whispers began to swirl. Farah's face, once effortlessly radiant, started to appear tighter, with subtle signs of early plastic work, nose refinement, a possible early facelift, and fillers that weren't yet standard in the industry. While her beauty was still undeniable, fans noticed something had changed. The expressions weren't as natural. The Farah they'd grown up with looked paused. Cher. Cher wasn't just a singer or an actress in the 80s, she was a force. With her bold outfits, powerful voice, and unapologetic attitude, she redefined what it meant to be a strong woman in showbiz. But with fame came scrutiny, and with scrutiny came the drive to stay ageless. Cher's transformation was subtle at first, a little lift here, a tweak there. But as the 80s progressed, her jawline grew sharper, her cheeks more pronounced, and her nose more sculpted. While her fans admired her beauty, they also whispered, "Has she had work done?" In later years, Cher openly joked about her surgeries. "If I want to put my breasts on my back, it's nobody's business but my own," she famously quipped. And she wasn't wrong. Her journey shows both sides of the coin. Yes, some changes were dramatic, but she owned them with the kind of boldness only Cher could pull off. Still, it left many wondering, where's the line between preserving yourself and becoming someone else? Sylvester Stallone. When people think of plastic surgery, they often imagine women in Hollywood. But the truth is, the pressure to stay youthful hits men hard too, especially in an era of action heroes. Just ask Sylvester Stallone. By the late 1980s, Stallone had become a household name thanks to Rocky and Rambo. The world loved his rugged, chiseled look. But as he aged, fans noticed that same face slowly changing eyelid lifts, facial tightening, and what appeared to be an overly aggressive facelift that reduced some of his signature expressions. His once weathered, tough guy features started to smooth out, and fans felt a subtle disconnection. The rough-around-the-edges charm that made Rocky relatable was replaced by a glossy version that felt more Hollywood than Philly gym rat. Stallone would later try to undo some of the work, but the changes were already deeply embedded in his public image. It was a visual metaphor for the 80s itself, gritty beginnings polished into something almost too slick. Latoya Jackson. The Jackson family was no stranger to the pressures of beauty. And Latoya, Michael's sister, followed in similar footsteps, though her journey was often overshadowed by the more visible changes of her brother. In the 1980s, Latoya began appearing with a visibly slimmer nose, sharper cheekbones, and a complexion that appeared lighter over time. Her evolving look sparked endless speculation, especially as the similarities between her and Michael became more pronounced. Some blamed it on family expectations. Others said it was the media's unforgiving glare. Either way, Latoya's transformations became part of the conversation around beauty, identity, and pressure in one of the most scrutinized families in showbiz history. Priscilla Presley. In the 1980s, Priscilla Presley was still very much in the public eye, not just as the former wife of Elvis, but as an elegant actress finding her own identity post-Graceland. Her role in the Naked Gun series gave her a comedic flair and revived her career for a new generation. But behind the scenes, Priscilla, like many stars, was trying to hold on to that timeless beauty. She underwent several cosmetic procedures, some of which went unnoticed at first. But in the early 2000s, it was revealed that one of her doctors, not board-certified, had injected her face with industrial-grade silicone, the kind used for car parts, not human skin. The result? Swelling, uneven texture, and a face that many fans said didn't look like her anymore. The heartbreaking part? Priscilla didn't need it. Her natural beauty, elegance, and aura were more than enough. But the pressure of Hollywood, even on someone with royal status in rock history, can be relentless. Melanie Griffith. Melanie Griffith in the late 80s was a blend of soft vulnerability and fierce charisma. Working Girl made her a household name, with that sweet voice, big eyes, and charm that made every scene pop. She was, in many ways, the underdog of 80s Hollywood who actually made it. But as her career progressed into the late 80s and 90s, Melanie, perhaps under industry pressure or her own insecurities, began altering her face. The first changes were subtle: fuller lips, tighter skin, higher cheekbones. But by the early 2000s, fans were shocked by how different she looked. The delicate features had become stretched, her smile less natural, her once endearing eyes pulled tight. Melanie later admitted she didn't even realize how far it had gone until people started pointing it out. She's since had some of it reversed, slowly reclaiming the features that made her famous in the first place. Daryl Hannah. Daryl Hannah was a dream in the 1980s. From Splash to Wall Street, she was the epitome of ethereal beauty, with her long blonde hair, wide eyes, and almost otherworldly charm. She was both the siren and the sweetheart. But Daryl, too, became entangled in the expectations of everlasting youth. Around the late 1980s and early 90s, subtle changes began to emerge. Her cheeks appeared fuller, her eyes tighter, her forehead too smooth. Critics weren't kind. They accused her of ruining her looks. Tabloids called her unrecognizable. And Daryl, mostly private, stepped away from the spotlight for a time. Years later, she admitted in interviews that the scrutiny hurt, that she never really wanted the fame, only to act and create. She called out the brutal standards imposed on women in Hollywood, especially those who dared to age. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories, your favorite stars, or even the ones you felt changed too much too fast. See you in the next video.